us for our final segment on issues in education today is Dr. Bernie DuBray, Superintendent of Fort Zumwalt School District. And Doctor, tell us a little bit, first of all, about your career and how long you've been in this kind of educational work.
Well, it's been a pretty long career for me. They tell me I'm the longest-serving superintendent in the state, so try to tell people that doesn't mean I'm the oldest, but I have been around the longest. I started as a teacher in the Pattonville district in 1969, and then I went to the Orchard Farm district as a principal 5 years later, and then became an assistant superintendent there. And then in 1982, I went as an assistant superintendent in the Fort Zumwalt School District that was just ahead of the growth spurt that we had. And in 1985, then I became superintendent. So 33 years later, I'm still here.
And so that growth spurt that you talked about now has you with 18,000 students, with 1,500 teachers, 27 school buildings, and 5 high schools. That's an impressive amount to keep track of. So where does your job begin every day?
Begins in the office about 5:30 in the morning. I read the newspaper for about 45 minutes, and then I'm pretty much hitting it at 7 o'clock, get through all the mail and get through the office and see who needs what. And then if I have the opportunity, I'm out in the school buildings around 9. But it's pretty busy in a district that large, and consequently, you're on call just about all the time.
And apparently they were a big fan of your work, because it's been since 1982, you said?
I came to the district in 82, but I became superintendent in 85.
Still, that's in that time. Talk about some of the changes that you've seen in your own district.
Oh my gosh, it's just unbelievable. In our district, when I came, there was about 8,000 students, and today, as you said earlier, 18,000 or so, and then we have another 500 early childhood students in our new early childhood center. So big changes. We went from 1 high school, 2 middle schools, and 7 elementary schools, up to now 16 elementary schools, 4 middle schools, and 5 high schools. So a lot of growth, a lot of changes. Probably the thing that sticks out most in my mind is this technology. Mm-hmm. Because even during my career, since I started so long ago, I started with virtually no computers, and then today what we have is phenomenal, what the kids have access to, and it's really beginning to have an impact on how many books you buy anymore. So much software is being purchased in place of books. Maybe not as many research materials in the libraries, because you can go online and get to the Library of Congress if you want. So huge changes in technology and numbers of students in the school district.
And it's funny, with the changes in the approach to education as well. I'm old enough to have been in the schools when the parents were all talking about the new math, and that debate was going on. Now it's about Common Core.
Yeah.
And that's another issue that I think gets people excited in a number of different ways. But the level of understanding could use a little brushing up. Talk about Common Core and how it affects the way that you do your work.
Yeah, Common Core really isn't around anymore per se. Common Core was big during the first part of the century. It was a series of standards that was established by a governor's commission, and it was an effort to try to have the same standards throughout the country as far as what 8th graders should be able to do in math, what 3rd graders should be able to do in math. There's certain standards that we taught towards, and there was an effort to try to standardize that throughout the country. There's a lot of controversy over Common Core. I mean, people talked about them, being evil and all these unintended consequences coming from it. So our legislature was really serious about it, and 2 years ago they passed House Bill 1490, and 1490 eliminated our use of Common Core in the schools. What it did, it established some committees, and at the direction of the legislature, these committees were to review Common Core and to rewrite those and to write the Common Core out of our teaching. So what we have today are the Missouri standards, Missouri Learning Standards, many of which look like Common Core, but they're not Common Core per se. The big thing about Common Core is, even though it was an effort to standardize what you were trying to accomplish at the grade levels, it didn't standardize the curriculum. So even though we were teaching the Common Core for third graders, for example, what curriculum we had to get to that point was different than Wentzville, for example, or Clayton or Rockwood. We all determine our own curriculum to get to that point, and I think that's what really separated the good and the bad about Common Core, is that there was still a lot of local control with that, but there is no more Common Core per se.
Well, from a state standpoint, we hear a lot about districts that aren't doing as well as Fort Zumwalt. Many of them don't get accredited, and when that happens, there's some pretty large headlines. So how does the state go about assessing districts and giving, in essence, a report card on a district?
Yeah, the state of Missouri has their annual performance report. Every school district in the state is assessed on 140 points, and the 140 points have to do with achievement and attendance and graduation rates and how you do with minority students. There's all these 140 points that are awarded based on your performance and your on these different standards. So if you get over 70 points out of the 140, you are what they call provisionally accredited. Or fully accredited. If you're below 70, if you're 70 down to 50, you're provisionally accredited, and if you're below 50 of those 140 points, then you're unaccredited. And we've only had those the two recent schools districts that were unaccredited, Riverview Gardens and Normandy, and they are acquiring their accreditation. Riverview's got theirs back. They were provisionally accredited. City of St. Louis was fully accredited, and then Normandy is making appeals to that now. So I think they'll be the State Board of Education will consider that coming up here. But anyway, it's based on how you do on those 140 points. If you just take a look at the St. Charles County, for example, Fort Zumwalt got 99.3 out of 99.3% of those 140 points, so it was 139 points.
Wow.
And so did Francis Howell, so did Orchard Farm. Wentzville and St. Charles also scored above 95, I believe. So of the 5 districts in St. Charles County, we all scored pretty well. Rockwoods and the Claytons and the Ladus and all of them score pretty well as well.
Interesting. Well, John, this is the first time you've been at MSBA, and as we look around, you see a lot of board members from around the state and the superintendents. And I guess the relationship that the superintendent has with their board is really important. And the board members come here to go through a whole series of seminars and training and get certification. And how do you keep developing school boards? Because there's new members that come on every once in a while and get reelected.
Well, again, in my case, 33 years here, I've dealt with 175 different people on all these boards and all these elections. So I don't know, there's many people around that have done that. And I think it's really important because people will ask me, how in the world have you been around so long? You have to know who makes the final decision. School boards sign contracts. School boards pay the bills. School boards hire teachers. School boards set policy. I don't do that. And I think, but I'm the chief executive for the board. So, I know what boards want, and then I manage the district in that fashion. So I think when sometimes superintendents stay around for a while, they tend to forget that. And when that happens, sometimes school boards have to decide, hey, we make the final decision and we'll show you. And that's when people get into big trouble. So you just have to remember, who makes those final decisions. Give them the credit because they're the ones that are making the decisions. And they don't see any reason to anybody to teach a lesson. I think that's important to know, and any superintendent it's good to be reminded about that. And then you develop those relationships, and you have to know, the board sets a policy and the administration administer it. You don't set policy.
I see. Well, you're in the office at 5:30 in the morning, and John, I think you were up before you came here and had a program.
That's right.
Interview. So. How do you balance your mental health, your personal life, your business life, because you're out late at night. I saw you the other night at a early childhood center.
Yeah, I'm a little different in the regard that I've been around so long. My children are all raised. They all went through Fort Zumwalt. They did wonderful. A daughter is a nurse practitioner, a daughter of a 15-year educator, and a son that's a transplant surgeon at Nashville. So they're good advertisements for our school district. But they're all raised and they're gone. I give every minute that is necessary to the school district. I joke sometimes. I've given my life to the school district. Well, I calculated my age the other day. I've been here more than half of my life.
Wow.
And so I don't begrudge that. I just am thrilled that the district does well. And, even though I give the board credit, some of that rubs off on me. And I'm really proud of what we've been able to accomplish because in 1982, the district wasn't viewed with the respect that it is today.
Right.
I'll take some of the credit for that.
Right.
But it's boards of education that make those decisions. So when I can, I like to play around the golf. But I typically did that with my son when he was here in residency at WashU. I like to play around the golf once in a while, but most of the time, I spend time with my wife when I can, my grandkids. But most of the time is to the school district.
Well, good for you. It's always nice to
be able to get some family time in.
Actually.
Sure. And we've heard a number of different challenges that school districts and school boards have faced so far in the program this morning. Changing technology, different demographics, growth, and with all of these things, for a new superintendent who would come into his or her first job as a superintendent, as a 25 or 30-year-old, what do you see as being the biggest challenges across the state of Missouri for somebody like that?
Well, a couple things as far as new superintendents, or any superintendent for that matter. I think one of the big challenges we have is finances. The state has done as well as they could by us, but it is so incredibly expensive to make the progress that people expect to be made with these kids. Mm-hmm. Tremendously, you need low class size, you need technology, you need software, you need staff. I mean, it's just a very expensive process. Salaries are always going up, costs of living are always going up, and consequently, money is probably something that really needs to be watched. Now, we need to give them a return on the money so that they feel good about it. The other thing I'm concerned about for anybody is that right now the legislature, we don't have the respect of public education that we had at one time. There is constant efforts that for charter schools and for vouchers and open enrollment, and those issues take away from the public schools. And consequently, we have to build back that respect from the state legislature so that they recognize that they are getting something for the money that they're putting in, and they don't need all these other schemes to try to, create competition.
I was always wondering how that